He already knew what he was doing. That was always the thing about Jeffrey Epstein. He walked into the Dalton School on Manhattan's Upper East Side in September of 1974. 21 years old, no degree, no credentials, and talked his way into teaching mathematics to the children of senators, media executives, and Wall Street partners. He came from Seagate, a modest gated enclave at the edge of Coney Island in Brooklyn. His father trimmed grass for the city parks department. His mother worked as a school aide. He had spent his entire life calculating the distance between where he was and where he wanted to be. At Dalton, he leaned against the front of his desk with his arms crossed, as if the rules applied to everyone else. He was the only faculty member who showed up at a party where students were drinking. Former student Scott Spicer later told the New York Times he was most remembered for one thing: his persistent attention on the girls. "This is wrong," Spicer said. Nobody in authority acted. In 1976, Epstein was dismissed. Poor performance. He walked out without looking back. He already had what he came for: an impressed Dalton parent who called Alan Greenberg senior executive at Bear Stearns. When Bear Stearns found he had fabricated 2 university degrees on his resume and confronted him, Epstein didn't move. "Nobody would have given me a chance otherwise." They kept him. By 1980, he had made limited partner. He left in 1981 under allegations of expense account abuse. The contacts were in his pocket. Through the 1980s, he built a money management firm for billionaires only, deliberately opaque, never naming clients. One name became an open secret: Leslie Wexner, founder of L Brands, Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works, one of the wealthiest men in America. Wexner's own financial advisor warned him, "I smell a rat." Wexner ignored it. In July of 1991, he granted Jeffrey Epstein full power of attorney over his entire financial estate. With that, Epstein acquired Wexner's Manhattan townhouse, 21,000 square feet, 9 stories, a Palm Beach estate, a New Mexico ranch, a Paris apartment, and in 1998, a private island in the United States Virgin Islands, 70 acres, accessible only by helicopter or boat. He called it Little St. Jeff's. To the world, Jeffrey Epstein was a self-made genius. But 45 years after that first day at Dalton, federal agents broke down his Manhattan townhouse door and found thousands of photographs of underage girls, cash, diamonds, a passport in another name. He understood people the way a locksmith understands doors. Not what they showed the world, what they needed. When Ghislaine Maxwell arrived in New York in the early 1990s, he saw it immediately. Her father, Robert Maxwell, one of Britain's most powerful media magnates, had been pulled from the Atlantic Ocean near his yacht in November of 1991. He had stripped $1.2 billion from his companies and their pension funds. The name was complicated now. Ghislaine Maxwell needed a floor to stand on. Epstein knew exactly what that felt like. She gave him access to rooms money alone couldn't open. Royalty, old European money. He gave her back the stability her father's collapse had taken. In a 2003 Vanity Fair profile, journalist Vicky Ward observed that Maxwell seemed to organise much of his life. Epstein called her his best friend. According to the federal indictment in United States versus Maxwell and testimony from 4 accusers at her trial, Maxwell and Epstein worked together from approximately 1994 through 2001 to recruit young girls from financially vulnerable backgrounds. The entry point was not force, it was an offer: $200 for a massage appointment at a wealthy man's home in Palm Beach. Palm Beach police detective Joseph Recaray later testified before the 2006 grand jury about what investigators found. Girls who were paid were told to bring others. When one brought a 23-year-old friend, Epstein turned her away. Recaray repeated to the grand jury what Epstein had said directly: "The younger, the better." One detail in that record stops everything cold. One girl had visited Epstein's mansion over 100 times, $200 per visit. A rented car as a gift, 100 visits. The same rooms, the same man. When police searched the Palm Beach mansion, what they found matched the girls' accounts with remarkable precision. The same layout, the same staircase. The houseman who worked for Epstein told detectives he had known something was wrong for years. The girls were too young to be masseuses, he said. He had known and said nothing. By May of 2007, lead federal prosecutor Marie Villafaña had drafted a 60-count federal indictment, 60 counts, an 82-page prosecution memorandum, testimony from dozens of identified victims. She pushed hard. The case was ready, but Epstein's lawyers were already in private negotiations with U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta's office. 8 months of talks. Villafaña later told the Office of Professional Responsibility she believed Acosta was influenced by the reputation of Epstein's legal team and feared her office was heading down the same road as Florida. She was overruled. The 60-count indictment sat in her drawer, gathering dust. When the OPR later reviewed the period, it found an 11-month gap in Acosta's incoming email records, covering precisely the time his office was negotiating the deal. In June of 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 Florida state charges. The federal case was buried in a non-prosecution agreement filed under seal, extending immunity to named and unnamed co-conspirators. The victims were never told. The DOJ's own later review found they were left, in its exact documented language, feeling confused and ill-treated by the government. He served 13 months of an 18-month sentence on work release, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, collected by his bodyguard. His own attorney listed as his workplace supervisor. Documents released under the epsteinfiles Transparency Act confirmed the vehicle used for those daily trips had been fitted with a bed. One internal DOJ text message uncovered years later read, "It was a shame. We had a great case. I kept everything ready in case the agreement got voided." He had always believed that the people with enough information to stop him would find reasons not to. Until November of 2018, when Miami Herald reporter Julie K. Brown published Perversion of Justice, identifying nearly 80 victims and naming Acosta, now Secretary of Labor, as the man who had approved the deal. Within weeks, FBI agents in New York had quietly reopened the investigation, prosecutors not bound by anything signed in Florida. A silent notification was placed with Customs and Border Protection. The planning document read, "He is a frequent flyer out of Teterboro. Ideally, we would like to pick him up when he arrives." On July 5, 2019, an FBI agent sent one email. "We received a hit notification that our subject will be landing at Teterboro at 17:20 tomorrow." Epstein was on his private jet returning from Paris. He had no idea. The wheels touched the tarmac at Teterboro Airport on July 6th. Agents surrounded the aircraft. Jeffrey Epstein stepped off his plane and into federal custody. That evening, agents searched his Manhattan townhouse. U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman announced 2 charges: conspiracy to commit sex trafficking and sex trafficking of underage girls. Inside the locked safe, compact discs with handwritten labels. "The alleged behavior," Berman said, "shocks the conscience." His lawyers offered $100 million in bail. Judge Richard Berman denied it. Danger to the community, serious flight risk, nearly limitless means. 2 weeks in, Epstein was found semi-conscious in his cell, placed on suicide watch. Then a psychologist moved him back to a regular cell. Alone. Internal records documented in the DOJ Inspector General's report show that in those final weeks, Epstein sat alone and repeatedly called himself a coward out loud. On the evening of August 9th, his cellmate was transferred out. No one assigned a new one. Epstein made an unmonitored phone call, telling the guard he wanted to reach his mother. His mother had been dead since 2004. A male voice answered. The guard left. The 2 guards assigned to check on him every 30 minutes were asleep. The cameras had stopped recording. The official logs were later found falsified. Every entry fabricated. At 5:42 a.m. on August 10th, 1 guard searched. Latest on Epstein in jail. 23 minutes later, Epstein was found in his locked cell. Officer Michael Thomas looked at what he found and said 3 words. "Breathe, Epstein, breathe." Then turned to his partner. "We're going to be in a lot of trouble." The New York City Chief Medical Examiner ruled the death a suicide. The charges were dismissed. 2 days before he died, Jeffrey Epstein signed a 32-page document inside his jail cell. Approximately 40 beneficiaries, $100 million to his girlfriend, $50 million to his personal lawyer, $25 million to his accountant, $10 million to Ghislaine Maxwell, $10 million to his brother. Not $1 for the more than 200 women and girls whose lives his operation had consumed. Even from inside a cell, he was still deciding who mattered. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted in December 2021 on 5 federal counts, sentenced to 20 years. In October 2025, the Supreme Court declined to hear her appeal. J.P. Morgan Chase paid $290 million in settlements to survivors. Deutsche Bank paid $75 million. Bank of America paid $72.5 million in March 2026. None admitted wrongdoing. Virginia Giuffre, one of the first and most persistent to speak, died by suicide on April 25, 2025, at her farm in Western Australia. She was 41. Her family said she had been fighting for the Epstein files to be released until her very last day. Over 3 million pages of documents were released by the DOJ in January 2026. A draft indictment naming Epstein alongside 3 assistants had existed for nearly 20 years. All 3 names remain redacted. The DOJ concluded there was no client list, no grounds to pursue uncharged third parties. The central question, who else knew and what did they do, remains officially unanswered. Jeffrey Epstein built his world on one thing above everything else: other people's silence. The women he thought would stay silent did not stay silent. The reporter who wouldn't let the story go did not let it go. The prosecutor in New York who believed she wasn't bound by what had been signed in Florida was not bound by it. That 32-page document names 40 people. Not one of them is among the women who spent decades trying to make the world understand what he had done. That document is the most honest thing Jeffrey Epstein ever put his name to. Say something below. The survivors who made this story possible never stopped speaking. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988.